Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, July 9th, 2025. I am Dave Biddle. I'll be joined by Patrick Murphy in just a moment. So, we know that the 12-team college football playoff era is going to last all 2 seasons, last year and then this year. And then they're going to move to a new format in 2026, which means Ohio State will win the national championship because that's what they do when they expand the playoff. But seriously, what is the best format for the sport? Let's say you just took your scarlet and gray glasses off. What's the best for college football when they expand? We know they're going to expand. They haven't said for sure, but they're going to expand to 14 or 16. It'll be 16 money. And then what's best for Ohio State? If you were then just looking at it selfishly, what's best for Ohio State? Is it one and the same? Is it different? We're going to get into that. We're going to talk about some of the NIL wildness that continues. We thought there might be guardrails going on, or Texas Tech's going to buy an offensive lineman for $5.1 million. One of the two. So we're going to get into all that stuff. But as any good podcaster does, you got to have some work boots that look good like this. And these are great work boots. All joking aside, these are fantastic. Brunt work boots. We got a great deal for you guys. The most durable. Definitely the most comfortable. They call it the cushed. So they feel like your favorite sneakers, and we can get you guys a great deal. Really are the best work boots, and they're so good. And they let you try them for free. If you're not satisfied, you can send them back. There's no risk involved with Brunt, and they really do. They are so comfortable. They feel like your favorite sneakers, and I'll wear them just with jeans. And people are like, where'd you get those? Like Brunt. And then I get made fun of, like, well, you're not doing any hard work outside. I said, you don't know what I'm doing. I think they know. All right. So right now our listeners can get $10 off by using our code Bucknuts at checkout. Just head to bruntworkwear.com, use code Bucknuts, and you're all set. After you purchase, they will ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that our show sent you. In addition, these awesome, they call them the Marin boots. They got a different styles of the Marin boots, steel toe, soft toe. Though that's not a soft toe, my friends. It's a pretty hard, soft toe. They've got like pants, a bunch of other stuff. So check out Brunt Workwear, and we get you guys $10 off by using code Bucknuts. All right, let's bring in my man Patrick Murphy. Hello, Patrick.
Hello. What's going on, Dave?
Just hanging out here on as Buck Rational likes to say. I'm just hanging out here in the mean streets of Hilliard, Ohio.
With your work boots.
Yeah, with work boots. There you go. BM5 coming to you live from the mean streets of Hilliard, Ohio. That's right. And a little bit of Grandview mixed in this morning. There you go. All right. So, to answer the question, let's start with what's best for the sport when they expand in 2026. What's best for the sport in your mind, Patrick?
Yeah, I guess that just depends on how you define best for the sport. Is that best competitive? Is that best for fans in terms of entertainment value? Is that best for money going into the program, which helps with the revenue sharing NIL stuff we were discussing earlier? For me, I want more quality football matchups. I want teams that are going to deserve to be in playing each other, whether that be in play-in games. I think that's an interesting idea. Instead of having the conference championship weekend, having teams play their way into the college football playoff. From a fan perspective, in terms of just watching it, and then from our media perspective, in terms of covering these games, I want games that matter and games that are going to get interest. Personally, watching some games between, if we're going to start having postseason games between teams that don't, really belong, I think you've expanded too far. So I think the idea that the Big Ten proposed with getting rid of that conference championship weekend, having play-in games sort of within your conference is interesting, because then you do match up teams that have some familiarity with each other, but also, quality matchups towards the top of the conference, especially if we continue to have these bigger and bigger conferences. So for me, it's all about the quality matchups. And I think that benefits both the media, the players, the fans. It'll get interest. And if you can do that, I think the expansion makes sense. I will say I was pretty content with the 12-team playoff. I know we're not going to stick with it very long.
Right.
Assuming they switch to just a straight seeding instead of what they do. The conference champions got the top seeds. That to me never made sense. We've talked about it before, and we saw the disadvantages it created last year for those teams. And then the other thing I would add is the long layoffs. I think that is problematic. Like you look at the NFL, yes, the top 2 teams in each conference get a bye, but it's only 1 week that you're off. It's just essentially 1 bye week. Whereas you look at, we'll use Oregon, for example, last year. And I think Ohio State still wins that game, even if Oregon and Ohio State play sooner. But clearly Oregon was more on the rust than rest side in that game, having almost a full month between games. And I think that's something they need to consider, whether that is letting those games start sooner. I know you want some time in between them for guys to get healthy and whatnot, but I don't think you can go that long without having games when you're asking to play top level game. It would be one thing if you're playing, you had 2 weeks between Ohio State playing, a non-conference opponent and Nebraska. No offense, Nebraska, just the first team that comes to mind. Instead, you have to, you're playing the best teams in the country. I think having a long layoff hurts the teams, and I don't want to see that increase as you add more teams.
Yeah, I think I don't want to steal Buck Rational's thunder here, and I would never want to do that here. But I agree with. Let's see, this is very early in the chat here. Yeah, I kind of agree with this. I think the best for college football would be just go straight 16 teams, and then just I like they're not going to get rid of conference championship games unless they have play-in games because of money. But yeah, they really are. They just, I don't know. But I like the idea of just going 1 through 16, straight seeding. Doesn't matter if the top 2 teams are from the Big Ten. Those are the top 2 seeds. Top 2 teams are from the SEC. Those are the top 2 teams. I don't care. I don't care how many. If the Big Ten only gets 3 in out of 16, which most years they'd get 4. I don't like the automatic bids because I think like if you're the Big Ten, the SEC, it's going to take care of itself. And the rare years it doesn't, okay, so be it. Then you don't deserve it those years. I like for the sport. We'll get to Ohio State next. For the sport, I like what Buck Rational is saying here. I like 1 through 16 straight seeding. All right.
Well, Dave, real quick.
Go ahead.
Yeah. The couple things just off that. First of all, I think the less we can involve a committee, the better. I think every year, despite the fact that we benefit from putting out those rankings each week, and there's a lot of debate about how the committee did. If you can take care of it on the field, I think that's better than having however many gentlemen and women sit in a room and discuss teams for a few days and then come out with the rankings each week. I think that's better off for the sport. And then in terms of the bye weeks, I think if you could shorten it down, so say, like the NFL model again, instead of having as long of a time between each round, just stick with your weekly format. I think that makes a lot of sense as well. And again, you could have buys for a couple teams, but to do it, so that it extended all the way into late January, I think is just a little much. I mean, it was great that we had college football that long, but I also would be in favor of, okay, season ends last weekend in November. If you want to have conference championships, fine. But then either the next week or the week after, let's get in and let's start the weekly playoff, just like they do in the NFL. And, I know there's not as much rest in between and you got to travel and things like that. But I think that makes the most sense so that you're not extending this as long as possible. The build-up's fun, don't get me wrong. But I think if you can get the season done early January, keeps the teams in rhythm, I think, and you keep I don't know. It felt like the season just extended too long for me last year just because of the delay. And look, I very much enjoyed getting to go to some of these things, but it was a lot. Don't get me wrong. And then I came home and was sick as a dog after the national championship, which is not what you want to be after you just watch Ohio State win the national championship. Anyway, go ahead.
You were not still basking while you were still barfing.
Yeah, that was unfortunate.
Yes. My recommendation is just to go to the national championship game and skip all those other loser games. No, we won't get into why that had to happen. I was even booked and ready to go to the Cotton Bowl. Not that I minded watching that one here from the homestead. That was pretty cool either way, but it'd been cool being there. But at least you and I will admit, I probably said something to you. We first got the seating arrangement at the Benzo at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta for the national championship game, and you and I were sitting next to each other. I'm like, might not be good.
That has been bad in the past. It worked out just fine, though.
We did finally break the streak. I think it was when Sam Darnold just got destroyed by that Ohio State defense. So that was 2017. Yeah. We sat next to each other, and I think that was the first time we sat next to each other in a press box where Ohio State won. But then, of course, they took care of business against Notre Dame. That was awesome being there. All right. What was I going to get to? Oh, yeah, Ohio State. Let me ask you this in 2 questions. What's the best format for Ohio State? And Patrick Murphy, does it even really matter for the Buckeyes?
Yeah, I think the second question is probably the answer to the first. I don't know if it does. I mean, as you expand, I think regardless of the format, you are probably going to get in almost every time in an expanded format, at least assuming Ohio State continues, with the success that it's had pretty much since Jim Tressel took over. For me, like that's not a big issue. I think even the 4-team format, I think you could have argued like 2015 Ohio State should have been in, even with the loss to Michigan State. I think there was at least one other year where they probably could have been in had the committee just made a slightly, I think we would say, better decision. And now in this format, like what would it take to leave Ohio State out? 4 losses? I mean, I guess it depends who the losses are to, right? Like the year Urban lost to Iowa, like maybe that year or the Purdue year you don't get in if you lose another game just because you have a bad loss like that. But I think it would take a lot to keep Ohio State out if you're going to 16 teams, assuming, again, they continue to be one of the more dominant teams in the country. So
it'd have to be 4 losses. You're right. It'd have to be 4. 9-3 Ohio State's getting in.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how you would.
Earl Bruce would love it.
I don't know how you would leave a 3 loss unless your 3 losses are to the 3 worst teams in the Big Ten, or maybe you somehow lose a non-conference game to a MAC opponent. I think it's gotta be good for Ohio State the more you expand. I know they're in for the 4 qualifiers from the Big Ten. I understand that. Why would you not want automatic qualifiers for your conference? The one thing I will say is if you have a bad Big Ten season where maybe it's just Ohio State and Michigan, or Ohio State and Penn State, or Ohio State and Oregon are really the only 2 good teams, do you then really need 4 Big Ten teams in? Obviously, the Big Ten's going to support that because it means more revenue for the conference. But I think that regardless, you're having Ohio State in. So I don't think it really matters for Ohio State for sure.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Like, I know, like, it's fun to talk about it. We're talking about it right now. I don't think it matters for Ohio State, but I do care about college football as a whole. I went to sport to always. Yeah. I've always loved college football. Loved it. It's always been my favorite. Like, football's my favorite sport. Although when I was a kid, I'd always say, people would say, "What's your favorite sport?" Depended if it was football season, basketball season, or baseball season would depend. It depended on my answer. But as I grew, I mean, football is clearly my favorite sport to watch, and college football has always been a little bit ahead of the NFL in my book. So I care about the sport. But yeah, for Ohio State, man, I agree. I don't think it matters for Ohio State at all. I don't necessarily agree with what Ross said. I think he was just saying this kind of a little bit for effect. He's like, we could just be selfish and go back to 4 teams and we'd be fine. It's like, well, you wouldn't have made it this past year. We would not still be basking, but I hear what he's saying. I hear it because most years Ohio State would be fine with just 4. All right. Before I do the next ad read, I'm going to get your thoughts on Big Ten Media Days 2 weeks from now. We even have a commenter about this. He's saying, no question, Terry on YouTube, Big Ten Media Days in 2 weeks in Vegas, no less. You got to be excited. Tell the listeners what they need to know about Media Days here in 2 weeks.
Yeah, obviously moving to Vegas is going to be interesting to say the least. Doing it out there as opposed to the only 2 I've ever been to are Indianapolis and Chicago. I think those are the only other places, right?
Right.
That they've done it. So Vegas will be different. No doubt about that. Ohio State will be on that first day. I forget the full list of who all's with the Buckeyes, but when the Buckeyes are on deck, it pretty much is the only thing that matters. I think it's going to be interesting to hear. We've got Ryan Day, Jeremiah Smith, Caleb Downs, and Sonny Styles headed out. Those, I think if we'd guessed, those were probably the 3 players we would have picked to go. I know in talking to Jerry Emig, this summer, there was some debate about whether or not they would bring Jeremiah, just because obviously he's a sophomore. But the consensus, from my understanding, was that if you don't bring Jeremiah, and let's say you bring Carnell Tate or somebody else on the offensive side of the ball, you would have had that person just being asked over and over and over again about Jeremiah, which not ideal. You want the questions to be fair to the people sitting there. So I think having Jeremiah there, it's going to be a zoo, no doubt about it. I saw people talking just yesterday because Big 12 or SEC Media Days, announced that Arch Manning was going to go for Texas, and people were talking about what it's going to be like for him. Jeremiah, I think, will be the same. But I think it's going to be good to hear from those guys. Obviously, we haven't talked to really any of them since the end of spring. So the defensive side of the ball, just what's coming along. You hear two guys that could potentially be captains on that side. Caleb Downs, there you go. Caleb Downs who's looking like the guy next to him, the progress Sonny's made. And then Jeremiah, just like, how do you, and I wrote about this the other day, how do you live up to what you did your freshman season? To me, that's something that I think is going to be really interesting. I know he's worked his butt off this offseason to be even better, but the numbers he put up as a freshman are numbers that the last few Biletnikoff winners didn't even put up. So how do you then go on to eclipse that as a sophomore? I think is certainly an interesting topic once we get out to Vegas.
It is funny that people are saying he's like the best freshman ever and stuff. He wasn't even freshman of the year in college football last year.
Yeah, and he'll get to see that guy week 1.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I love his answer. He was like, "Oh yeah, he's a good player too." I love Jeremiah. He's quietly confident. He's not going to ever be extremely boastful or anything, but he's not like a wallflower either. I mean, he's not very talkative, but he's got confidence, but he's not cocky, and that is a tough balance to walk. He must like some gooder sunglasses. He's so humble. He's not trying to buy these $1,000 sunglasses. Of course, they would just give them to him. It wouldn't matter at all. But Gooder, I highly recommend Gooder sunglasses. These are the Operation Blackouts. Buck Rational, it has a bunch of different. He can tell you all about them. Stylish sunglasses. They start at just $25 a pair. You get a 1-year warranty. You get 30-day free returns. You're not going to need that stuff, but it's nice to know it's there. Lightweight and comfortable, 100% polarized, no slip, no bounce. I play tennis in them. You can ride roller coasters on them. Yeah, you can ride thrill rides with them, as I found out yesterday, and they don't fall off. Now, you could lose them, but they won't fall off on a roller coaster. They might, just now I forgot them. Buck Rational was right. I had to stop the video and go over because I brought my Gooder sunglasses. I got them from my car before the show started so I could wear them. And then I forgot that I left them over at my desk, and Buck Rational knew because he's a Gooder sunglasses fan. So, yeah, if you like to run, hike, bike, I don't think Patrick should wear them when he's playing soccer, but, maybe. But I like to wear them when I play tennis. If you need a new pair of sunglasses, Gooder is giving Bucknuts Morning 5 listeners free shipping. You can go to gooder.com/Bucknuts, use code Bucknuts for free shipping. Gooder offers 30-day money-back guarantee and 100% satisfaction. Again, that's gooder.com/Bucknuts and use code Bucknuts for free shipping. Yeah, our listeners are so in tune with what we do, and man, he knew exactly what I was doing when I went over there. I turned the video off when I got my Gooder sunglasses, and Buck Rational was all over it. All right, Cedar Point or Kings Island? Kings Island. I Cedar Point's better, but Kings Island is closer.
Oh, that's true.
Kings Island's closer, but I love Cedar Point. I love both of them. We're lucky to have both of them, but I know Kings Island was my park growing up. I've been there many, 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 many more times than Cedar Point, but you can't argue with the roller coaster capital of the world, Cedar Point. But Kings Island's awesome. Orion, Diamondback, Mystic Timbers, the Beast, obviously, Banshee. They've got some good rides at Kings Island for sure. All right. And you can wear Gooder sunglasses. All right. So, NIL wildness. This is just hilarious, and I'm going to get to this question specifically in a moment, but we'll wait on this one, Robert. So Felix Ojo, the Buckeyes obviously wanted him. They were one of the teams in on him. Then Texas Tech's how about we give you $5.1 million? For those that are unaware, that's right around what Jeremiah Smith is getting this year. He might be more now because he signed an Adidas deal. That's right around the number I heard that Jeremiah Smith is getting this coming year. Again, probably will be more than that now. Man, I don't know where you come down on this. I'm perfectly fine with Ohio State not getting into $5 million bidding wars for high school juniors and seniors.
Yeah, look, I'm very pro the approach Ohio State has taken. I know it means that sometimes the Buckeyes are going to miss on guys on the recruiting trail, but as you're still basking indicates, you can't argue with what Ohio State has done. Now, look, you had those guys obviously in before NIL, and you were able to retain them because of NIL. But I think this is the best strategy going forward. Look, you just have to. We've used the NFL example for the playoff format. Look at what the NFL did after Sam Bradford got that monster contract with the Rams and then flamed out pretty quickly. They put a cap on how much rookies can make, right? There's a rookie wage scale now, so that you're not paying your rookies more than you're paying your veterans who have proven it on the field in the NFL. I think that's the appropriate way to do it if you are a college football team. And I think you look at the teams, it's a small sample size in the NIL era, but I think that is the format that has worked for teams. You know, Georgia, Ohio State, they haven't been huge transfer portal teams going in and getting guys to reshape rosters. They haven't paid a ton for every freshman. Now, you mentioned a guy like Jeremiah. That's a guy you probably give some money to coming out of high school, right? Because he's just different. Right. And obviously the freshmen coming in, a lot of them are already working with companies. They have deals, things like that. But for me, it's about the guys that have done it for you on the field for the most part. And I think it's a smart tactic by Ryan Day and the Buckeye staff. They've been competitive with a lot of these guys. I think they've recognized more where they do need to spend some money, the offensive line, maybe a little bit more on the defensive line. But I think for the most part, that strategy has worked out well. And I think when you get in that locker room, you know, you have to earn everything you're going to get, not only to get on the field, but also that money if you want.
All right, let's get to Robert's question. This is from Facebook, Robert McIntosh on Facebook. He says, gentlemen, what are your thoughts on putting a cap on NIL? I mean, it sounds good in theory. It just, to me, it'd be illegal.
Yeah.
You can't put a cap on it. I mean, especially we live in a capitalist society. You can't say, well, we believe in capitalism except for these kids. Not even really kids. They're not even really kids. So I just don't see how in the United States that would hold up.
Right. And I think again, looking at the professional sports model, like teams pay the kids whatever, or the athletes whatever, the contract is, right? But then they can go out and get their deals. And that's where I think it needs to get. And I don't know how you get it back to there, but not to take anything away from the good work that collectives have done. But honestly, it should be, okay, Ohio State, we'll use Ohio State, for example. Here's what you get from the revenue sharing. And then you can work out with agents now that they can have and whatnot, work out these other deals. You mentioned Jeremiah Smith earlier. He's got deals with Adidas. He's got deals with several clothing stores, things like that. Like, to me, that's the way the NIL component of it should work. You get paid by Ohio State now. I think the revenue sharing is a great idea and a good way to at least get into this, and maybe it changes and they become employees down the road. But the NIL component, I think, should have little to do with the school. Maybe the schools are helping you connect with these brands or whatnot, but that should be a separate thing on the outside. If a company wants to pay Julian Sayin, for instance, to endorse their product, that's where I think NIL was intended to be, and that's where I think it should go. And again, schools can be a part of that. And I think advantage Ohio State, you're going to come to Columbus, a big city with a lot of Fortune 500 companies. There's a lot of attention on the Buckeyes. You're going to get more deals. So I think the opportunity is still good for Ohio State there. But to me, that's the way you do it. I think I agree with you, Dave. Putting a cap on it, I think, would be difficult once you inevitably end up in court.
Yeah, I mean, unless you do collective bargaining.
Yeah,
you'd have
that's a whole different ball.
I know they don't want to go down that road. Like,
right.
That'd be the only way it'd be legal in the United States, is if you collective bargain that there is a cap. Good luck. Even baseball, Major League Baseball's union has fought that and still fights that to this day, and they've won baseball. And then we'll probably have a work stoppage in baseball to go off on a little tangent here. not next year, but probably the year after. I mean, Rob Manfred, the commissioner's already threatening it. And a big reason they want to try and have a salary cap, and the players union's like, heck no. So good luck doing that in college. But if that'd be the only way it could happen is if you collective bargaining, have a collective CBA that would allow that. All right, let's get to this question. This is interesting. This isn't really a question, but more of like a comment. All right. This was what I thought was going to happen. Okay, Emily is saying articles are coming out. Emily on YouTube, loyal listener. Hello, Emily. Articles are coming out now about the clearinghouse not approving all of these deals. This is going to get interesting, smiley face. It sure is, and I'm fully aware of the House settlement. I'm fully aware that people are confident. Some people like Ross Bjork are confident that it's going to hold up, Patrick, because it was a federal judge that signed off on the settlement. But that was not a trial, and I still harken back to the Supreme Court's decision 4 years ago, actually, 2021. I mean, the language is pretty clear that you cannot prevent a student athlete from making money on top of what they get for their scholarships. And that's exactly what this clearinghouse would be doing if they shoot down these deals. And I think the first time an athlete gets his clearinghouse, they shoot down his deal. I think the first time he takes it to court, he's going to win, and everybody else after him is going to win. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. What do you think?
It's tough because, as we were just saying, like if a company wants to pay you to endorse their deal or endorse their product, who is to decide how much they are allowed to pay you to do that? I think the intent of the clearinghouse is clearly to avoid something like you mentioned Felix Ojo earlier, like just getting money for no reason, and sort of the pay for play model that we were essentially heading towards kind of beneath the surface, right? How do you do one and not the other, though? At this point, I'm not sure. And so I think they've tried to sort of put the genie back in the bottle while sort of going around the rule. And I do think that, this will end up back in court, and we'll see. Ross Bjork, as you said, was pretty confident that it would hold up. I've heard others or read about others saying similar things. But it is hard to picture because there is that previous ruling that you mentioned that says you can't do exactly what this is trying to do. I think the intent is good there. So it's just not kids getting thrown money at them and possibly even avoiding some of the situations we've seen where schools promise money that then they can't deliver and things like that. So in theory, this made a lot of sense, but I'm not sure how far they thought it through, or they just think they will be able to somehow hold it up. And I'm not sure how that's going to work.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating, as Emily said. I mean, it's definitely going – if they're shooting down these deals, these kids are going to take them to court, and in my opinion, they're going to win. At the very least, it's going to be interesting to follow.
Absolutely.
Which was Emily's point. It was like, this was going to get interesting. It sure will. Well, this was an interesting show. Thanks to Patrick Murphy. I appreciate it. Great stuff from Patrick. You can watch his award-winning podcast every week. It is the Bucknuts Happy Hour. So Bucknuts Happy Hour coming at you, Saturday?
We'll probably record either Thursday or Friday live, and then it'll come out on your podcast platform Saturday, usually Saturday morning.
Perfect. All right, there we go. All right, great stuff from Patrick. I really appreciate it. Thank you to Mr. Patrick Murphy, and thanks to all of you. We really appreciate you guys watching the show, listening to the show. If you're in the live audience and you were part of the chat, that's awesome too. Thank you to all of you. We appreciate it very much. Hope everyone has a great day and great rest of your day. Go Bucks, still basking.